Okay, so have you ever noticed how sometimes
Mm.
the best things in life aren't always the newest ones?
Yeah.
You know, like that old pair of jeans that just fits perfectly,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
or that vintage record player that makes music sound warmer.
Right.
Turns out cameras can be like that too.
Huh. Interesting.
And that's what we're diving into today.
Okay.
The Panasonic Lumix GX9.
The GX9.
Is it still a good buy in 2025? We've got a whole bunch of articles and reviews that
Oh,
we dug into to figure that out.
cool. I'm excited.
You do.
Yeah.
So one of the things that really struck me
Right.
is that this camera wasn't designed to be a specs monster
Yeah, that's true.
when it came out.
It's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, and even now in 2025,
hmm
it's still turning heads.
You know what I think is so cool about it is that it wasn't trying to be flashy.
Right.
It just had this really thoughtful design philosophy.
Yes. One article even called it a sleeper hit,
I love that.
which I thought was a funny way to describe a camera.
It is kind of funny.
But it makes sense, right?
Totally.
Like it wasn't this big flashy release, but it had this real kind of like quiet confidence about it.
Yeah, they were going for the right specs
Yes.
instead of the biggest specs.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes it so interesting to look at
For sure.
even today.
Absolutely.
So instead of like a massive sensor,
Yeah.
they went with a 20.3 megapixel
Okay.
digital live MOS sensor
Right.
and paired it with their Venus Engine image processor,
Yeah.
which is their kind of like image processing brain.
Exactly.
Now you might be thinking 20.3 megapixels.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that a little low these days?
I mean, it's not the highest number we see out there.
No, it's not.
That's for sure.
But the reviews all stress that this camera is about way more than just megapixels.
You know, I was going to say that's what I noticed too. Like,
Yeah.
this combo is still capable of delivering seriously good images.
Right.
Apparently, that Venus engine does some heavy lifting
Oh, yeah.
when it comes to processing all that image data from the sensor.
So it's like they focused on optimizing what they did include
Yes.
rather than just throwing in the highest numbers possible.
I think that's a really smart approach,
Totally.
especially when you see the results.
Yeah, and this approach actually shines through in the image quality,
Absolutely.
particularly when it comes to dynamic range.
Dynamic range. That's a big one.
Okay, so break it down for me.
Right.
What is dynamic range and why should I even care?
So imagine you're shooting a sunset.
Okay.
You've got those brilliant oranges and reds in the sky,
Yeah.
but also these dark shadows in the foreground.
Uh-huh.
Dynamic range is a camera's ability to capture detail in both the brightest
Okay.
and the darkest parts of a scene.
Interesting.
And the GX9 is apparently a rock star at this,
Really?
even compared to newer cameras
Wow.
with those fancier specs.
So even though it's not the newest kid on the block,
Mm-hmm.
you can still handle those tricky lighting situations.
Absolutely. The articles say it captures really nice detail in those highlights and shadows,
Cool.
which gives you more flexibility when you go to edit your photos.
I like that.
And speaking of editing,
Yes.
the GX9 also gets rave reviews for its color reproduction.
So this is where they all gush about how vibrant and accurate the colors are.
Spot on.
Haha, okay.
Yeah.
I'm following.
The colors in your photos
Yeah.
should look natural and true to life,
Awesome.
whether you're shooting landscapes, portraits, or anything in between.
Now, I'm the type to take photos in all sorts of lighting,
Sure.
good and bad.
Yeah.
Does the GX9 hold up when things get a little dim?
That's where noise performance comes in.
Okay.
It's basically how well a camera handles those low-light situations
Uh-huh.
without the photo getting all grainy.
Right, right.
And the reviews were pretty impressed with how the GX9 performed here.
Really?
Yeah, apparently it keeps noise under control even at higher ISO settings,
Okay.
which is something you typically have to bump up when there's not a lot of light.
So for someone who isn't a pro photographer
Yeah.
and maybe doesn't want to spend hours editing out grain,
Right.
the GX9 sounds pretty forgiving.
That's the impression I got for sure.
Cool.
Like you can shoot in challenging lighting conditions
Yeah.
and still get really usable images
Awesome.
without having to be a Photoshop wizard.
This is making me rethink my whole, like, must have the latest camera mentality.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It really challenges that idea that newer is always better.
It totally does.
It does.
Like, it seems like the GX9's designers were really thinking about the user experience,
Totally.
not just trying to win a specs war.
Yeah, and that user-centric approach extends to video, too,
Either way.
which was another surprise.
Okay.
The articles were calling the GX9's video capabilities a hidden gem.
Interesting.
which piqued my curiosity.
Me too.
Yeah.
I thought it was mostly known for still photography.
Yeah.
So what kind of video features are we talking about here?
Well, first off, it shoots 4K video at 30 frames per second.
Okay, that's pretty standard these days, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's still more than enough for most people creating content in
Mhm.
2025.
Right.
But the articles go beyond just the resolution.
Okay.
They really emphasize how the GX9's 4K video quality is a big step up
Yeah.
from what you get with like your average smartphone.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
A lot of folks are using their phones to shoot video these days.
Oh, for sure.
But if you want something more professional looking,
Yeah. The GX9 seems to bridge that gap nicely.
I like that.
You get that kind of cinematic quality
Yeah.
without needing to invest in a big, bulky cinema camera.
Right. And did the articles mention any specific features
Yeah.
that make it good for video?
Definitely. One thing they highlighted was the in-body image stabilization.
Okay.
This is a lifesaver for handheld shooting
Yeah.
because it helps smooth out any shakiness in your footage,
Makes sense.
especially if you're vlogging or shooting while walking around.
It's like you don't have to carry around a separate gimbal or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, the GX9 has this feature called focus peaking,
Okay.
which helps you get super precise focus
Mm-hmm.
when you're shooting video manually.
Ah, so it's got some features for more advanced videographers too.
It does. And that ties back to the overall versatility of the GX9.
Right.
It's not just a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
It can handle both stills and video with a good degree of competence.
Very cool. Okay, let's talk about actually using this thing.
Okay.
The articles mention how the GX9 is a joy to shoot with,
Yeah.
especially for travel.
Yeah, portability is a big deal these days.
Huge.
No one wants to lug around a giant camera bag.
No, for sure.
And the GX9 is compact and lightweight,
Mm-hmm.
so it's easy to slip into a backpack
Yeah.
or even a larger purse.
But small doesn't necessarily mean uncomfortable to hold, right?
Right. And thankfully, the reviews are pretty positive on that front.
Good.
One even called it shockingly ergonomic for its size.
Aha, I love that.
They love that tilting LCD screen,
Uh-huh.
which is apparently great for those street-level shots,
Yeah,
where you're holding the camera at a low angle.
makes sense.
That tilting screen is a really smart design choice.
I can see that.
You can compose shots from all sorts of creative angles
Yeah.
without having to contort yourself
Right.
or lie flat on the ground.
No one wants to do that.
Haha, exactly.
And it also has a real viewfinder, right?
It does.
Not just the screen on the back.
Yep, it's got this bright, high-resolution OLED electronic viewfinder,
Okay.
which the reviewers say is really clear and easy to use,
Oh.
even in bright sunlight.
So you have the option of using either the screen or the viewfinder,
Okay.
depending on the situation.
Exactly. It's all about giving you options,
I like that.
making that shooting experience enjoyable.
And speaking of options,
Yeah.
the GX9 also have physical dials and buttons,
Yes.
which you can customize to your liking.
Yeah, you can program those buttons to access your most frequently used settings,
Oh, cool.
which can really speed up your workflow. The reviewers really appreciated that level of personalization.
It's like the camera is adapting to you,
Right.
not the other way around.
Exactly. And this is where the Micro Four Thirds system comes into play,
Okay.
which the GX9 uses.
Yes.
It's known for having a huge selection of lenses
Okay.
from both Panasonic and Olympus,
Awesome.
as well as other brands.
So you're not limited to just a few basic lenses.
Not at all.
Nice.
There's a lens for pretty much every type of photography you can imagine.
Wow.
The article raved about the Panasonic Leica 15mm f1.7 lens,
Okay.
which they said was perfect for street photography,
Yeah.
capturing beautiful detail, even in low light.
Awesome.
They also mentioned the Olympus 45mm f1.8 lens,
Okay.
which is a classic portrait lens known for its creamy, blurred backgrounds.
Cool.
And then there's the Panasonic 1440mm zoom lens,
Mm-hmm.
which is a great all-around lens for travel and everyday shooting.
Wow. So many choices.
I know, right?
That's awesome. I can see how that would be a big draw for someone who's really getting into photography.
Yeah.
You can start with one lens,
Mm-hmm.
and as your skills and interests develop, you can kind of expand your kit
For sure.
with other lenses that fit your style.
Yeah, and a lot of these Micro Four Thirds lenses
Mm-hmm.
are more compact and affordable than full-frame lenses,
Okay.
which can be a huge factor for both budget and portability.
I can see that.
Definitely.
Okay, I'm already getting lost in all the lens possibilities. We'll have to come back to that in part 2.
Sounds like a plan.
But we still need to dig into whether the GX9 is actually a good buy in 2025, considering all the newer cameras on the market.
Yes. And what about those rumors of a possible GX10 successor?
Ooh,
So much to discuss.
so little time. Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into the Panasonic Lumix GX9,
Can't wait.
where we'll tackle those questions and more.
Awesome.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Panasonic Lumix GX9.
Before we get into whether the GX9 is still a good buy, I think it's worth circling back to those core image quality aspects we touched on earlier.
Totally. We were throwing around terms like dynamic range and color reproduction.
Right.
But what does that actually look like in a photo you'd take with this camera?
That's a great point.
Help us visualize it.
Okay, so let's take dynamic range.
Right.
Imagine you're on vacation. You're trying to capture this stunning vista.
Okay.
Mountains in the distance, bright sky, maybe some wildflowers in the foreground.
Yeah.
With GX9, both that bright sky and those shadowy areas would retain detail.
So you're not getting a blown-out sky
Right.
where the details are lost.
Exactly.
Or a foreground that's just a dark blob.
Nope, you're getting detail in both.
Nice.
And good color reproduction means those wildflowers in your photo would have those rich, accurate colors that you saw with your own eyes.
So no weird color casts or anything making the scene look unnatural?
The reviews all praise the GX9's color science, saying it produces really natural-looking images straight out of the camera.
Now, I'm the type who also loves taking photos indoors.
Sure.
At concerts, or even just at dimly lit restaurants.
Yeah.
How does the GX9 hold up in those low-light situations?
That's where noise performance comes in.
Right.
Remember, noise is that graininess you sometimes see in photos,
Yeah.
especially those taken in low light. And the GX9 gets surprisingly high marks for its low-light performance.
Oh, really? They weren't expecting much from a camera of its generation.
They were pleasantly surprised.
Interesting.
They said even at higher ISO settings, which you typically use in low light,
Yeah.
the GX9 manages to keep that noise under control.
So it's producing cleaner, more usable images.
Exactly.
It sounds like this camera is a real workhorse.
It is.
But let's shift gears for a second and talk about video. I'm still stuck on how those articles called the GX9's video capabilities a hidden gem.
I know, right?
What exactly makes its video quality so good?
A few things.
Okay.
First, the 4K resolution at 30 frames per second
Yeah.
is still the standard for most online content in 2025.
Right.
But what sets the GX9 apart is the quality of that 4K footage.
Okay.
The articles emphasized how much better it looks compared to what you'd get from a smartphone.
So it's a noticeable step up for someone who has been using their phone for video, but wants to elevate their content.
Definitely.
Cool.
And the GX9 has a couple of features that make it particularly good for video.
Oh, okay.
We mentioned in-body image stabilization earlier. That's huge for keeping your footage smooth.
Yeah.
Especially if you're walking around while filming.
No more shaky cam. Exactly. And what was that other feature they mentioned for more advanced users?
Focus peaking.
Right.
It highlights the areas of your image that are in focus.
Okay.
Which is really helpful if you're focusing manually.
It sounds like the GX9 can handle a variety of video needs, from casual vlogging to more serious filmmaking projects.
That's the beauty of it.
Oh.
It's got enough features to satisfy more experienced users, but is still approachable for someone just starting out with video.
Okay, let's talk about the feel of this camera.
All right.
The articles all emphasized how enjoyable it is to actually use the GX9.
That tactile experience is so important.
It is.
And the GX9 seems to strike a great balance between portability and ergonomics.
They loved that tilting LCD screen.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just about taking photos from unique angles.
Right.
It actually makes the camera more comfortable to use in different situations.
Exactly. For example, if you're shooting at a low angle, you don't have to crouch down uncomfortably.
Right.
Just tilt the screen up and you're good to go.
It's like the camera's working with you, not against you.
I like that.
And don't forget that bright, clear electronic viewfinder.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
The article said it's a real asset when you're shooting in bright sunlight, where it can be hard to see the LCD screen.
Definitely.
So you have the best of both worlds.
You do.
The flexibility of the tilting screen and the clarity of the viewfinder.
Exactly.
And then there are those physical dials and customizable buttons, which give you more control over your settings.
You got it.
And let you personalize the camera to your workflow.
They raved about how you can program the buttons to access your favorite settings, which can save you a lot of time.
For sure.
and fiddling around in menus.
And of course, we can't forget about that vast lens selection
Oh, yeah.
that comes with the Micro Four Thirds system.
Like a huge advantage.
It is.
You're not just buying a camera, you're buying into a whole ecosystem of creative possibilities.
I like that.
Remember those lenses we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
The Panasonic Leica 15mm f1.7 for street photography. The Olympus 45mm f1.8 for portraits. The Panasonic 14140mm for all-around shooting.
So many choices.
I know, right?
And the article stressed how Micro Four Thirds lenses tend to be smaller
Yeah.
and more affordable
Absolutely.
compared to full-frame lenses.
It's a big bonus for both your wallet and your back.
Totally. So you can build up a really versatile lens collection without breaking the bank
Yeah.
or needing a separate suitcase just for your gear.
Right.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From image quality and video features to the overall user experience.
Yeah. But I think it's time to address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Is the Panasonic Lumix GX9 still a good buy in 2025?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
Let's dig into that in part 3, where we'll weigh the pros and cons and also explore those tantalizing rumors about a possible GX10 successor.
Yes, wait.
Okay, so we're back.
Back again.
And it's time to answer the big question.
The big one.
Is the Panasonic Lumix GX9 still worth buying in 2025?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
We've seen how much this camera has going for it, even all these years after its release. But there's no denying.
Yeah.
Your cameras are out there with tempting features.
Right. One article we read even called the GX9 a timeless classic.
Yeah.
But is classic just a nice way of saying old?
I think that article was getting at something really interesting, though.
Okay.
It was reframing how we think about value in the camera world.
Instead of always chasing the latest and greatest.
Exactly. They argued that a camera like the GX9 actually becomes more valuable over time.
More valuable.
Yeah.
How so? I'm usually thinking about how tech loses value as it ages.
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
The GX9 wasn't designed to be like a disposable gadget.
Right.
It was built to last with quality materials and a real focus on the things that matter.
Yeah.
For taking great pictures.
So while those flashy new cameras might be grabbing headlines,
Yeah.
the GX9 just quietly keeps doing its thing, delivering solid performance year after year.
And, you know, because it's been out for a while, the price has come down. You can find some amazing deals on used GX9s these days.
So it's like getting a proven workhorse camera at a bargain price.
Pretty much.
That definitely makes it tempting. But I know some folks out there are thinking, what about the GX10?
Yes, the GS10.
Those rumors have been swirling for a while.
It's true. A GX10 is likely on the horizon,
Okay.
and it'll probably have some exciting upgrades.
Like what? Spill the tea.
Well, higher resolution sensor for starters,
Okay.
maybe 24 or even 30 megapixels.
So that'd be a step up from the GX9's 20.3.
It would be.
Yeah.
More megapixels usually means more detail and better low-light performance.
Right.
And on the video front,
Yeah.
we might even see 6K or 8K recording in a GX10.
Wow, 8K.
Yeah.
That's getting into future-proof territory.
That's right.
But even if it sticks with 4K,
Mhm.
I bet they'll improve the frame rates and byte rates for even better quality.
Almost certainly. Plus, we could see improvements to autofocus speed,
Okay.
in-body stabilization, and maybe even some AI-powered features.
Okay, a GX10 would be pretty sweet.
It would be.
But as we've seen,
Yeah.
the GX9 is no slouch.
No, it's not.
It's got a lot to offer, even in 2025.
You know what it really comes back to?
Yeah,
The best camera isn't always the newest one.
right.
It's the one that fits your needs and inspires you to create.
And for a lot of people,
Yeah.
the GX9 might be that perfect balance of features, performance, and value,
It's a camera that punches above its weight.
and its age.
Yeah, I like that.
So for those of you listening out there, if you're drawn to the GX9's design philosophy,
Right.
its focus on the user experience and that kind of enduring quality, don't let the allure of the new hold you back.
I think the GX9 is a great reminder
Yeah.
that sometimes the most satisfying tools are the ones that quietly do their job year after year,
Right.
helping us capture the moments that matter.
And isn't that what photography is all about?
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Panasonic Lumix GX9. We hope you've discovered something new, learned a thing or two,
Yeah,
and maybe even challenged your assumptions
for sure.
about what makes a camera good.
Remember, the best camera is the one that makes you want to go out and shoot,